Okay. So we have started watching that scripting elements yesterday. So which are like we have seen scripted expression, right? How to handle the query string across different pages. So one page to another page if you're an index page. So we have created a small form and we handled the query string over here, right? And yeah, we just started declaration tag. So as discussed, so declaration tag is something which is same as yeah, Johnny. Yes, Johnny.
See the screen, yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, any?
No, earlier I was not able to see the screen.
Okay. Is it fine now? Yeah, is it fine now? Okay. Fine. So declaration tag is something which is same as scriptlet, but only difference is scriptlet expression will work in service method, which is triggered each time website gets triggered from the user. But declaration is something which is out of service method. Like if any method is out of service method, which means it will be called when a servlet when we actually bring up the server. Like when you start a server, right, all the servlets will be triggered right at once. Maybe at that time your declaration tag will be instantiated, or at the first request your servlet tag will get instantiated. That is a portion of the declaration tag. Let us see how we can actually get into the declaration part. Now let me create declaration over here. So let me take up. You can declare your scriptlet, or you can actually declare your expression, right, anywhere you want. But only thing is the scope should be correct, because I cannot declare this expression tag before the scriptlet, alright? Because I'm trying to use a variable which is defined in the scriptlet part. So it should be always used next to that, right? So that is how it goes. So let me just define some. So for declaration you have to use exclamatory mark. So JVM will automatically understand that this is something which you are actually making a declaration tag, and while translating to servlet, right, it will automatically bring this method back out of the service method, right? Now this declaration tag is used for two things. The first thing is you can define a variable which can be used across the whole JSP, right? Or and you can also define your own user-defined methods in this. So let me just define some variable. You can just say int. You can just say, or I can just say string. Let me lstr name or something. Okay, we already have the name tag, right? We just say place something, right, is equal to some data. You can actually declare this place actually. So let's say some place. We just give some data, right? So these are we declare declaration, and in declaration tag a semicolon should come, because this is something we're actually writing a statement in this declaration tag, right? So this is a variable declared, and you can actually go in this way. You can write a method in this way. Let's say I'm writing a simple method in sum of, let's say I'm going to take two variables, which is int a comma int b, right? And I'll just say return of a plus b. Okay, so here I have written my method, I have declared my things and all, right? Now you can understand why we don't have to call this declaration tag again and again, right? If you just know that this method is there for once in a whole life cycle of JSP, right, it is enough, right? you can just call this method whenever you want, or you can actually call this variable whenever you want. That is why we actually go for declaration type, right? Now let us see how we can actually call these things. Now, maybe once all these things are done, I just or before this, after the second message, let me just break up. So here, whatever you just write without any tag, right, it will just consider it as a HTML thing, and it will just paint it on a page, right? And here, let us see how we can call that. Now let me write scripted first. So let us say I want a sum of two numbers, which is int, let's say z is equal to, I'll just call the method. You can see the sum method will directly be shown here. Excuse me. Right, and the sum method will be shown, and you can see sum method is the scope of a page 1. That's what it says. Let's say you want to get an sum of 90 and some 110, right? So you can actually call a method within a JSP. You have defined a method, and within a JSP you are actually calling that, right? So you can just paint it up. You can just say out dot print sum, let's say, right? So that's how it happens. You can just call this method and you can actually run this, right? So internally what happens is this will be instantiated when a server starts, and whenever you get a service method triggered, and if you are actually calling this method, it will this method anyways will stay in cache because this method is already declared. So you can call that method and you'll get a sum. So let me run this. We'll show what happens. So let's start this server. With JSPs. Yeah, so we have some name and we have some password. Go. Now you can see the sum. Right? We just got the sum as 200. So that is how you can use a declaration tag and right, for declaring variable or declaring a method. Now this is not the limit actually. You can actually declare any number of methods you want inside a declaration tag. Right? You can use any number of. And this scope of this variable which is declared here will be in a current servlet, which means it will be in a current JSP itself. Right? So that's how you can actually call. So this is something which we have called in a scriptlet, right? You can directly give in an expression. I hope now you would have understood how you can actually give it in a scriptlet. Let me break it up here. So here I can just say is equal to, so I can just say sum directly plus sum of some, let us say 12 and some 45, right? Because this statement will actually give the output of some value. So that's what happens, right? That's why we have taken it as a sum and so let me run this again back.
Srinath?
Yeah, Sunita.
So just like the function signature, suppose if you declare a variable, will it act as a global variable?
It will act as a global variable only in this JSP.
But will it be like a final type of variable, or you can just change the value later on, and will it get reflected everywhere else after that?
Both the values. You can create both final, let's say, let us just check that, okay?
Okay.
Sum ID is equal to this. Okay, so here let me use those things. Break here, break here. Let me print those things. So I have my value lstr place plus some space plus lint for id. Okay, so after this let me just write a scriptlet where I'm going to change the value of place, right? So let us say I'm just making it as US, right? And then I'm using one more expression tag to place. Okay. So this is what I'm going to do now. So here till here we have seen something called sum, and I've used my variables, both the variables lstr place and lint, and I've painted it up. And here I've changed one of the variable, and after that I'm using that. Let me check what happens. So let us just clean this up. Restart your server. Go back to this. Something from waiting. Go. Yeah, you can see the initial sum, right? It directly printed the next one. This sum 57 is something which is a direct expression tag where you don't have to give any semicolons and all. You directly call 12 and 45. You got sum. And you can see the place, we just painted the variables and we changed. So this line got printed over here, which is my place and value. And then we changed the place and we actually used the place. Now we got a yes. Right? Now in the same way, if you try to change your integer, right? Let's say some 123. Now it will directly say it can't be changed because cannot be assigned. Right? Right, Sumita? So everything acts as such. All the core elements will be, those things will be retained as it works in mobile. Right. So was it your question, Sumita?
Yes, Srinath, but then there is no specific benefit of you declaring the variables in this section, right? I mean, they act as...
Yeah, because see, the way, I believe what exactly is an advantage if you define it outside, right? Let us say you are declaring some 10 different variables, right? 10 variables which you are going to use across the page every time, right? So what happens if you define these variables inside a scriptlet or inside a scriptlet, right? What happens every time any invocation or any request comes, right? This service method will be invoked, and every time what it does, it has to create a separate memory for the 10 variables. Am I right? But if you define the same method or a variable outside the service method, once it will be declared and it can be used across each and every request. You don't have to actually free the memory for these 10 variables and again allocate some memory, again free memory, because that's going to take some time, right?
This is where my question is actually. Suppose say it gets declared first time. Suppose say you are starting with the initial value, right? So during the course of execution, the value changes. So, but the next time when the next request comes in, it still holds the original value, right? Not the changed value.
Next time it comes in the sense, again in the second request you mean?
Yeah.
No, it will be changed, right? Because these variables will be called only once. Okay, let me just show you that. I'll show you that part.
The part I didn't understand is like the initialization will happen only once, but later on when you change the value, that's not the...
Yeah, I'll show you.
The same type of execution, right? That's like a per request.
Yes, I'll show you that.
Okay.
So here I'm going to take one more browser here as such. Okay. So let me take web apps. Now let me log in with a fresh value, something. When I click on go, right? So you can see it came as a fresh. Right? Even if we change here, right? Right, Sunita? Because this JSP once we actually called it back here, actually, once we got the response back, right, it was killed.
Yeah.
Alright, it was actually killed. Now let me just rebuild once. So let me kill this, restart this server once, and we'll keep it as it is without saving anything. We'll restart this. Oops. Go back and stop the server, and start the server again. Let's go back here. So it will be a fresh request. Let's come back here and no, okay. Let me use the same browser first. We have to use the same browser first. Okay, so here that JSPs, and this is my fresh request. So when I give the first request, you can see the value will be retained. Right? Because there is something which I am getting from a fresh. Right? You can see here the value which we changed in the previous case, right? It got retained in the next request. Right? Let me go back to this.
Okay.
Yeah, let me go back. Yeah. Okay, because my user session is saved at that moment.
Yeah, that's what was my question. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no issues. Let me just look into this part once. What happens here? You can see the value details. So previously, when actually I changed the browser, right, I actually changed some code here and saved, which means my server started again, right? So when my server started again it got reinitialized. Now these are something, after starting my server once, you can see the value that retains every time you actually get.
Yeah, for example, like many sites have this number of visits that counter, right? I mean, hypothetically, if you think that they are using...
Yeah, I can understand what you are actually saying. But the thing is, you will declare a variable, you will choose a variable in such a way that even if it changes, right, you are actually making use of that. Let us say you are actually counting how many requests you are actually getting. So let me just go in that way. Okay, so let us say actually using this declaration tag, you can actually get the traffic value. So let me take something called int.
Yeah, I'm sure they don't use this kind of variable, but I'm just saying.
Exactly. They will not use something which, if it changes, if there is a hit of a functionality, right, they will not use, right? So let us say you are just using traffic is equal to 0 first, okay? So this traffic is something, each and every request, whenever it gets, we want to make it 1, let us say, right? So whenever we get something, let us say, in my scriptlet, I'll just say something like, so plus, and let me print that part, break out dot print of traffic. So this is my variable which I am actually using, right? Where I am actually calculating my traffic rate. What exactly, how many requests I have got, maybe today, let's say, right? Before restarting myself. So let's go back to this place. So let me go back here. So here, I can see traffic will come to 1 first, right? Let me go back to, oops.
You can just refresh the same page, right?
I can refresh, but if I refresh the same page, I don't think that the same session is going on, right? Yeah, so that's why I just wanted to show it in the next session page, yeah? Perhaps. I can refresh actually, we'll refresh that once we actually do that. So go, now you can see counter 2, right? This is my second. Now come back to here and I can just refresh this, now you can see 3. I'll just refresh, you can see that there is my traffic going on, right? So I can just make it, and if I go back to this page, I can, so now it's 18, right? Now if I can go back here and refresh, it will come to 19.
Yeah.
Right? If I come here, no, because complete session will be maintained. Now if you access the same website, right, it will show me that the new user is being logged in. Right? That's why I'm just taking these mini browsers, that's it, right?
Okay.
Maybe this will be used like this. If there is something which you want to know commonly across all the requests, then you can go for something which is common, right? You can declare in this request, right? So that's how you can actually. But if you want to declare something globally, and you don't want anyone to any request to just edit that, you can go for it. You can actually make it final, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. Right. Yeah. So Johnny, Ujjwala, you got the question, and I hope you understood this, right? This is something which is very important again, because you have to choose what you have to define. Because unnecessarily you should not, unnecessarily you should not declare something like array list and all, which is very heavy to page again, because they are going to be unnecessary overhead to the pages, right? Because unnecessary memory will be allocated to that unless you shut down the server, those memory will stay as it is in JVM, right? So in that case, you have to choose a variable which you want to declare in.
So,
Yeah, John.
Srinu?
Yeah.
So if till the server is restarted, this if you are using it in this fashion, this count will always get increased.
Yes, it is always getting.
Like let's say if there are 100 users and every time to.
Yes. Okay, let us just increase this count. No, okay.
So even if they are browsing
You
from
can see now, I just restarted my server, right? Yeah. Okay, it's 32, 30 and all, right? So let me just open my Chrome. You can see 40, 47, 47, right? And let me go back to this and restart my server. Right, I've restarted my server, come back here, it was 43. Now when I refresh, it will come back to 1. Now here, again, when I refresh, it will come back to 2 again. Right? It starts again. Right? Only when your server starts, your all your declaration tags will be, the things whatever you define in declaration tag will be instantiated. Right? And this method and these variables are only page scoped. You cannot use the same variables across some other page. Right? We should not, maybe it is something which you are defining only for the current servlet as such. Right? Because whatever you are defining in a current servlet, you can use in current servlet. You cannot just create an object of this and use. If you want to use another page, just create something else. Right? That's what happens here. Right? So that is all about the scripting elements which we have in JSP. So these are the 3 different ways where you can actually use how you can actually write your code as such.
Srinath, I think it happened yesterday, but I don't remember exactly.
Sure.
Happens when you are invoking a measure, you are passing wrong number of arguments? Basically, when a Java type of exception occurs, what happens?
You're passing one more argument as such, it is you're saying?
In any Java exception type of scenario, suppose, yeah.
Okay, you were talking about if any exception happens in page, what happens, right?
Yeah.
We will come to that. There is one thing, complete exception handling in JSPs. Yeah.
Okay,
we'll
thank
come to
you.
that.
Yeah.
Basically, immediately to answer Sunita's question, right? You can just actually use try catch. You can write a scriptlet, right? You can just use try catch of maybe let's say exception. Everything is same again, right? But there are some tools, there are some things in JSPs, some very good things. Exception handling has made very effective with some tags actually. We'll get to know what exactly they are. So as of now, I can just split this part. I can just do this. I'll just keep my try at top and I'll copy this catch block, right? And let's keep it down right at the bottom. Right? So as of now, I can do this, right? So what happens inside whatever you do, it can be expression, it can be scriptlet, right? This try catch will be common for all, right? So that is what. So here in expression, let us just print out of exception. Let's say e dot get message. I can print that. And let us do something. Let me just say in this scriptlet, let me just define int x is equal to 10 divided by 0, right? Something, so that the whole page should be filled up, right? So here let me just clean, okay. Yeah. Right, now you can see it came till this part, right? It painted till the part where whatever this got, and then as after this we just said something called exception, right? It stopped at part. It stopped at this place because we are handling that in HTML, and the HTML doesn't even understand what exactly it has to do. So what happened till this part, which is place and ID, right? It painted everything correctly, right? It is like a board. Till the part whatever you are writing, it will just paint it there. And at this part, what happened? Some exception happened. If you don't handle this exception, right, we'll see what happens. But here, as we are handling exception, it will directly go to this catch, and as you're handling it decently, it will just show this part like yes, you have some exception. Now let me just show you something. If you don't handle the exception, what happens? Let me just comment this out. Right, so let's go back here. Let me restart my server first. Is it restart done? Yeah. Click on go. Right. So if anything happens, you can see it will directly go to exception page. Now this status page is being created by Tomcat, right? It will just create final error, and it will just give the location where exactly the exception happens, right? So these pages are something which will be created out of your exception, right? But we'll actually handle something when we actually come back to exception handling in JSP, right? So we'll see how to actually get rid of these pages. You should never develop any site which takes its own decision, right? Everything should be under your control. As of now, we just made something, some simple try catch, and obviously everything was under your control, right? We didn't let Tomcat to generate its own, page to just show that this was happened, and you can do that. Always try to whatever page you're writing. If you feel that there is some script that you're going to write, always try catch on that. And in catch, you should not do this thing, right? You should not do this. Rather, you should be actually sending it to some other page. We'll see that when we actually come to exception handling, right? We'll see that because at common place, you should say, you should actually move this page to exception page and just say there was some error, please contact admin. You would have seen those things, right? Whenever there is a maintenance, or whenever there is an exception in a page, or whenever there is something which is memory out of flow, right? Sometimes it happens in your pages, right? Then what happens? Your request, whenever you send a request, if server is so slow, right? It will take some time to get back. So those situations you have to handle, send it back to either error page or information page, and just say there is something going on, please contact someone, or do refresh your thing. Or sometimes you also have to remove your cookies and refresh your page. Why? Because sometimes, let us say, if in a website, right, if something has a developer have added something, right, and in a page, in an existing page, and we have called some classes, some objects, he created some cookies and all. Now, if let us say the existing cookies you have removed, right, even that can happen. What happens? Existing cookies you have removed, and let us say your page, you were actually using that page constantly from so many months, right? Sometimes whenever we redeploy the new solution, right, it may not work for you the first time. But yes, if you just refresh continuously your page, what it does is it will try to clear the old one, and it will. This is something which it's a hardened rule I have tried without deleting the cookie. Without deleting the history of your browser. Just refresh your page continuously, like 5 to 10 times and all. What happens? It will try to get the complete page afresh from server. I don't know why it happens, but it happens in every browser. But the best thing to do is just go clear up the browsing data and just try to rebrowse it. It will be a completely fresh page you're actually getting from server. That happens, right? We'll see this part when actually we come to exception. Fine, Sunita. So as of now, if you have to implement something, you can just go ahead with this, right? And if you want to call some page and all, you can just call out here itself, right? So that you decently go to that page and say, yes, there is some problem with that.
Okay.
Right? So that is all about the scripting elements which we had. Now you guys have any doubt across this, because this is something which is very important. We'll be using continuously without scriptlet or expression declaration. Yes, we can design a JSP, but most of the time you will be taking a call on this, defining your scriptlets and all. Huh? Okay then, so if everything is fine, we'll just move on to the next topic, right? Before that, what is that? We have the output, okay, we have already seen this for lookup. Okay, done. So you can use a scriptlet, right, to actually paint. If you want to dynamically render some data in your page, right, you can do that, right? Okay, we have already seen this yesterday. Fine, not a problem. Let me remove this exception part. Yeah, okay, perfect. So this one, where you can actually get the data and dynamically render the data. Fine. Now, obviously you won't be showing the data in this way. You will be using some CSS or HTML, style formatting to show the data, to present it out in a right way, in a right font, in a right color and right size, right? So that we'll be doing when you actually do in your the design. Fine then. So this is about the scripting elements, and this is very important, guys, because the same thing comes up when you actually go to when you are in JSPs, when you go to Java beans again, we'll be using the same terminology, and even if you go to frameworks, right, we'll be using the same terminology to get the data from common action elements or some beans as such, right? That's all. Now, so if this is okay, then let's move on to the next thing called JSP implicit objects. Now, what is this implicit object? Now, we have already seen some of the implicit objects here. Now, let us say you have gone through request. You can see here, I haven't declared anywhere in my JSP that there is a variable called request, right? Because Java, whenever you create a JSP, right, automatically some of the variables or some of the objects of some types will be created automatically whenever you run this page, or even in design time, right, those objects will be created automatically. You can just go directly and you can actually use them directly in your page. So best example which we were using till now was request. We have used request, and we have also used one more thing called out. You can see I haven't declared anything for out, right? Out is something which is used as a print writer, which we were looking at during the servlets part, right? The same thing we were using here, which is out here. Now, same as these things, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this is what I was surprised yesterday, how this out came. I wanted to ask you
These are something which are already instantiated in JSP. Yeah. So as same as these two things, right? We have more. We have around some 8 to 9 objects which are being created. Right? We'll be checking out that what exactly they are, because they are very important to know. Right? So we'll just divide this in two ways, which is object. What is the object which got created, and for which type the object is, right? We'll just see. So this list is very important, guys. Okay? So let us take the first object. Let us take the first one itself, which is out. Now this out is something which is your JSP writer's object. JSP writer is a type, is a class type in Java, right? So whenever you create a JSP, it will automatically create an object of JSP writer and it will directly give an out. So that's why we were using out even in servlets when I used to create a print writer. Even if you go to some bigger sites, even if you go to some complete reference book, right? Sometimes even in servlet your print writer object will be out itself, because just to make it resemble, right, even in JSP. So whenever I use out in JSP, you would have thought of like, okay, this out is used to print something, but where I'm declaring. So this is where it is being declared, right? And then you have a request, which we have already used, and this request is an object of type your HTTP servlet request. Right? It is HTTP servlet request, because if you remember, JSPs are something. Yeah, where is that? Yeah, JSP page is something which is being inherited from servlet, and then the last stage which we are working now is HTTP page, which means it is inherited again from JSP page. Internally we are inheriting servlet. That's why all the requests and responses whatever we are using is not different. It is the same. Yeah.
So does that mean that whatever we do in servlet can be done in JSP? That's same.
Yes. Whatever you can do in servlet, you can do everything in JSPs.
So except that it's not object oriented. I mean, it just cannot follow the class structure, but I can.
No. You can. Okay. Class structure in the sense, what does it mean?
So JSP is like top down, right? It just potential program.
Yeah.
So I cannot have like class methods like that, right?
You can have, right?
I can have it in JSP?
No, you cannot create a separate class, but you can actually create a methods, variables. You can create an object of some other class, which is
except that it cannot be contained in a class structure, but whatever
exactly.
I have in servlet,
Exactly.
I can bring the code to JSP.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But you can create an objects now. Yes. Yeah. Maybe you cannot implement complete hoops as such, but yes, you can actually do complete thing whatever you can do in servlet, right?
Okay.
Fine.
Okay. Thank you.
No issues. Yeah. That is a request, and then you have your response object. Response, and then here it is HTTP, which is servlet response, right? So we'll see. We haven't seen this response part because we have seen something called form tag. In order to move from one page to another page, we'll see more things because we'll be creating more JSPs, right? Not only two, we'll be creating more JSPs, and we'll have to move from this part to next end. So we'll see how it actually flows, right? So that is your response, and then you have servlet responses. You have something called config, right? So this config is something same as which you have seen, which is your servlet config. Okay. So you may be wondering, is it the same as servlet config? We'll see how exactly this servlet config works. Whether it is different from the servlet config which we use. If you remember, in our servlets, we use servlet config to get the parameters whatever were defined inside the servlet tag, and this servlet config is particular to that servlet only. If you remember, we learned two things. One is servlet config, and next one is servlet context. Servlet context is something which is global. Anyone can use the context params if you define in web.xml, but this servlet config can be used only in the particular servlet, only if you define the same init params inside a servlet tag, right? We'll see how here it works. In the same way, you also have something called servlet context, but servlet context object is not context here, it is an application. The application is the object of servlet context. Right? So context, right? So here you can use a servlet context concept by using an object called application. So these things are something which will be directly provided, guys. Which means if I say application, which means there will be something called application. You can see application is something which is servlet context. You can see config. Config is something which is predefined, right? You can directly use that. It is same as which we have seen something called out and request. Now, so after application, so you have yeah, Ujjwala? Yeah, Ujjwala.
Yeah, can you just briefly explain what do they do? Like the out is okay, it prints out the on JSP page. So what does this application and config does on JSP
Config
page?
and application, we use this config and application to get the data whatever we have defined in our configuration, right? The usage of servlet config and servlet context is same as we used to use in servlets, right? We used to read some data from configuration files using servlet config or servlet context, right? If you remember in servlets, right? The usage will be same even here.
Okay,
Yeah? And I hope you know the response. Response is something which is used to actually, whenever you are moving out from this page, right? Whatever you want to do for the next page, you will be doing through your response, which is your HTTP servlet response, right? So that is servlet. And then you have, so once you have servlet config, servlet response, yeah, you have something called session object. Now session in JSP is direct session, which is your session. It's a direct object, and this is an object of direct HTTP session. Now, if you use this session object, right? If there is no session, it will create a new session for you. And if there is an existing session moving on across the JSPs or servlet, right? It will use the same instance of session to maybe save your attributes. We'll see how this works, and this is something which is persisted across all the pages, right? So this this session, right? And then you have page context, page content as such. Page content, right? And this is something which is a direct object of page content. Page context, I'm sorry, it's page context. Is it a page context? It's a page context, not page content. Page context, which is an object of page context, right? So we'll see what is different between the servlet context and the page context, how we can actually access something using the page context, right? I can do something which is used to actually set some configuration, but let us see whether it talks to web.xml or not, and it is used more than the servlet context actually. When you are actually using JSPs, right, then we'll be seeing this one. We'll see this part of it. And then you have page. You have a page actually, direct object, and this is an object of the type object. You can actually use this page object to do some tasks in page. So which are like, you can actually use this for defining something called so we call it as declaratives, directives, right? We'll use this for directives. We'll see when we come to the directives concept, right? We'll see how exactly we can use these things, right? But even in directive, whenever you are using some directives like page or tag or something, even they are something which are objects of some types. It is an object of a page is an object of a type here, okay? And then yes, you have something called exception. Definitely there is an exception, direct exception object we have, and this is a child of or an object of throwable class. And throwable, anyways, we know that exception is something which extends your exception. Exception extends your throwable, right? In the same way here, a throwable's direct object is exception. We'll see how this works. This exception we use in different ways in different situations, right? Whenever we actually go for exception, which is in directive, we have some exception handling directly which can actually handle in directives. We'll see how it actually goes up on that. But this object is something which carries the current page exception across all the, at least to the next JSP, right? We'll see how it works. So these are something which are implicit objects we have, which we can actually use in JSP, right? So we have already seen something called out and request. So these requests again are used in so many ways. So we have seen it for reading the query string, right? You can also go for something called request dot. If you can see, you have something called get. What is that? One second, let me just see whether the part is there. You have something called parameter values, right? You can actually get all the parameters, whatever you are getting, right? We have seen this part, right? We have seen, like, yes, you have read a few values. Whatever, if you know the key, you can actually go with that. And if you don't know the key, right, you can just get the parameter names. Yes, this happens sometimes, right? You may not know what exactly happening, but yes, you just compare. If this string contains this, then do this. Yeah, this situation comes sometimes, right? Then you can just go for get parameter names and you can read everything, right? So that is about request get parameter names, and you have something called, yeah, we also have cookies. If you can see here, get cookies, right? This is something which the session management, it is same as we have learned in Servlet, right? We are not going to actually repeat that, but yes, whatever you have done in Servlet, same thing can be actually implicated in your JSPs too. Your get cookies and all, right? And your form field, from hidden field, here you don't have to actually worry about the writing hidden field, right? Because it's a direct JSP. You can hide anything you want here, right? You can create a direct element, you can just make it hidden field. And URL rewriting, yes. URL rewriting is something which you are going to see, because that is something which works more in JSPs. We'll see the URL rewriting part, right? And then you have your query string. So this get query string will get the complete query string and it will print. Let me just print this query string once. So let me just go back here. Maybe. So you can actually get the complete string. So if you are not interested in reading the parameters now, if you want to get the data and search the data among the query string, you can do this part. Just say out.print. You can save this in string. Oh, sorry. You have to write it in the script. So you can save this in string, lstr query string, let us say, is equal to the query string. Right? And then just say out of print of your first. So these are you can actually create a query string, right? So sometimes, rather most of the times, whenever you are not sure about what exactly the key is, like if you are actually tagged to the third-party key side during initial stages, right, you will be using the direct reading of the parameters and actually matching up your values, right? It will happen. That is, you're just taking something, click on go, right? Now you can see the complete query string will be retrieved. You name till whatever it be, the complete query string will be retrieved. Now you have your string in your hand. Now you can actually handle this string in whatever way you want, right? You know that in a string, the main delimiter is ampersand, right? And each and every query string value will have a key and a value separate with is equal to. Well, these are the delimiters, and now you can actually check out in your own way. And if you want to just compare something, that if you want to just say contains of name or contains and password, you can just go ahead with that, right? Anything is okay. But yes, sometimes you will get the situation of reading a direct query string to do some task. And then you have something called anyways, you have actually, we will see this attribute names and all while reading the sessions, right? Okay, you have get session 2. So this session you can actually create in this way also. If you want to get this session, this is same as if you are using a HTTP session, right? Sorry, not this. If you are using a session object, as I said, right, which means it is doing this part. You don't have to exclusively do this, right? The session, in this session object itself, you have your get attributes, you have your set attributes too, right? Set attribute too, right? So you don't have to exclusively go for get session. Yes, but all the objects are exposed because this request is something which is not written out of servlet. This request is same which is there in servlet, right? That's why you're actually getting all the options whatever we have. But yes, some things we have predefined, so you can just go for that and use that session. We'll see this part when we actually come back to the session attribute of our implicit object, right? So these are the different implicit objects we have, and from tomorrow, right, we'll just see from this response, and then we'll see different things what actually we can do, right? Fine then. So let's wind up till here, and yeah. So as per Ujjwala was requesting something yesterday, like if you want to have a good understanding, by the time we complete this